Welcome. This is the podcast by Wake the Farm Up called Maintaining Ground. And I am your host, Andy the Elf. Wake the farm up. I'll be talking with old friends, new friends, and a whole variety of people who are very inspiring, intriguing, and have their own opinion about the world to share and incredible stories. So I hope you enjoy this experiment.
Boy, time flies as the crow flies.
What the actual farm? Everyone, we have Angelo Giallombardo, and he and I go back at least 22 something years. We've been adventuring and keeping up with each other ever since we've known each other. We lived together for a while during college, and Angelo's got a great laugh. It's contagious. I've been laughing ever since I've met him, and he's done amazing things with his life, and we'll get to hear some of the fun things, some of the beautiful things that he's gotten to do and share with us, and he's inspiring. So, welcome, Angelo. Say hi.
Hey, Andy. Thanks so much for having me here. Many of you don't know this, but Andy is really Andy the Elf. That's how we know him. Imagine a tall, blonde, brown hair, long hair, sometimes bearded gentleman, skinny as a rail.
What the farm?
Thanks for having me, Andy. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe it, but I'm actually as thicker than I've ever been right now.
Oh, I believe it.
I know. Last time I've seen you, well, at least a photograph of you, you were looking thicker than ever. I remember you had gotten through experiencing Crohn's for years, and that was like keeping you as a skinny guy like me back in the day. I didn't have Crohn's, but I got some other kind of high metabolism thing. So, I don't know, do you want to tell us a little bit about Crohn's, what that is, just briefly? I know a lot of people probably know, but some people
Yeah, no
might
problem.
not.
Yeah, it's a digestive disease, genetic. I was diagnosed at 12 years old, and I had a hard time with certain types of foods. They didn't know what it was for about a year and a half. I was going to the doctor, getting tests, back and forth. Then they diagnosed me with Crohn's disease, and it really hits me randomly where when I eat something, I get sick, and I'm out of commission. Basically bloated and not feeling well. Really nasty symptoms.
I remember years ago you explaining to me it's like your digestive system's trying to digest itself.
It attacks itself. It's an autoimmune disease, yeah.
Okay.
So it's no fun. But the thing is, I never know when it's going to hit me. So I could be having a great time, having fun with friends. It could be anywhere. If I eat the wrong thing at the wrong time, then I get sick. I think it's stress related. I have a feeling it's environmentally stress related. It triggers something in me, and my body attacks itself, and then that's not a lot of fun. So I'm out of commission for about 12 hours to a day. I've learned how to deal with it, but I used to be really skinny. I was 130 pounds in 2004. I was wasting away. I couldn't really keep food down, and then I was so stubborn back then. This is kind of when a little bit after we lived together, 3 or 4 years after we lived together, and so because Andy and I were roommates, it was a lot of fun. There were some crazy times, but nonetheless, I had to have surgery. I had to basically get the surgery that I was saying I wouldn't get ever, and they resectioned my small intestine. We got 30 feet of small intestine or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And they only took about 1.5 feet out.
Okay.
But thank God that I did that. It saved my life. The wonders of modern medicine. And I went from about 130 and then 130 pounds, and then I gained weight finally. So 5 years later, it's about 180 pounds. Now I'm just comfortable. I'm healthy. This is the most important thing. I have vitality. I feel like we measure life by energy, right? Not so much by, just by age, but how much energy we have, how happy we are. And now I have vital energy. I can do just about anything, anytime.
Swell, yeah. It's life.
Yeah, there's a lot of stressors in life, right? They all kind of suck. So when I get stressed, I try to do things like meditate, take care of myself because no one's gonna do it for me.
Yeah, I think
And now,
a big part of the commonality I would say that a lot of the listeners here have is they enjoy laughing.
yeah,
I think laughter is definitely one of the best medicines for sure.
shut the farm up.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta board the farm up when the zombie apocalypse comes. You gotta put barbed wire around the fence, and not just to keep the cows in, but to keep the zombies out. So yeah, when we were living together, a few interesting things. The farm that we lived on was owned by some folks named Bill and Stacy, who went on to have a highly successful dairy business that people all over the Midwest enjoy their milk. Snowville Creamery.
Is it
Yeah,
cool? Well,
you'll see that in
God
little
bless 'em.
coffee shops all over Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky. Probably
Those
outside
folks
of
work
there,
so
too.
hard. They were up at 4 in the morning, moving the 250 head of cattle to get them milk twice a day. It was incredible. They worked so hard.
Like a workhorse.
Every once in a while, I have somebody ask me, "Hey, because you're a farmer, does that mean you're up at 5 in the morning?" I say, "Well, I try to get to bed by then."
Hi, Andy. My parents came came down from Cleveland, and there's suburbians from Cleveland. They came down and they wanted to hang out and see what it was like living on the farm. And so we get my mom and dad out there. And they're all dressed up, nice clothes, and we live on a dirt road.
Yeah. The Rainbow
Really
Lake.
middle of nowhere. Yeah, Rainbow Lake Road, middle of nowhere. There's a dirt road. We live on a 300 acre land with 250 head of cattle. And Stacy invites my mom and dad out to her place.
Yeah.
And they live in a little wood
Little-
cabin.
Little cabin, yeah.
She's tough as nails, this woman.
Yeah.
She grew up on a farm. And
She's got more testosterone than like a whole group of high school boys these days.
So my mom and dad go over to her farm, and she's like, she got a little sick calf, like a little sick cow, and they got to give it medicine. So she rounds up this calf. And my mom and dad are watching, and she's like, "Here, why don't you hold the calf while I feed it medicine?" So my dad goes over there. He's in his like Dockers and his freaking loafers. It's muddy out, and he's holding this little calf, and he can't even hold it. And Stacy's got it really under control, and he's holding it, and it's wiggling around, and she feeds it the medicine. And they'll never forget that day because city slickers went into the country and fed some calves some medicine. Oh man, they love that story, and I
That's
think
awesome.
it kind of highlights like the clash of two different worlds, and we see this now where people can't relate to each other until they
time.
really put themselves in those environments and each other's shoes. And my parents got a new perspective that day, and they really respected Bill and Stacy. They were tough, hard-working people.
Yeah, I think that's important for people to step out of their box and see what other people's lives are like. And I think it's important to be open to teasing each other about the differences, but, not being so sensitive that it becomes like a battle, right? So I remember...
Yeah, everybody's...
I remember my parents, like my dad's best friend was a lieutenant major in the Army, and my dad was a Vietnam War protester. He still has a box with his little peace symbol patches and things that he would wear to protests. But they're best friends still. They would go backpacking together. I would overhear them talking about their political differences, their total different views of the world, but they would do it while laughing together. So that was definitely something that's always inspired me growing up, is just observing people having differences and being able to be friends and talk and laugh and, accept each other.
I agree. Stereotypes are there for a reason. I mean, let's face it, there's some truth to them, but you have to have like an open mind about other people's perspectives and what they've been through, and that's maturity. Like when you can see someone else and the stuff that they go through, and then take it in and use it to form your own biases and opinions, and you have to laugh at yourself too, because I got an 18-letter, 12 vowel Italian name, so I can take an Italian joke. You can go ahead and just lay one into me, and I think everyone's so thin-skinned now. We should be able to make fun of each other equally, right? We can make fun of each other in every single way. It's more fun that way.
It's always good to have like a good antenna to know when somebody is not able to take a joke, but sometimes people just need a hug and they need some compassion and talk something out. But the best way sometimes to get through those things is laughter, and
absolutely
not taking everything so seriously.
I think it brings us all together, right? We need to laugh. It's in our DNA where we have to enjoy each other and smile and
So
What the fuck are they talking about?
So back to the dairy farm. When we were living there, I had a trumpet, and sometimes I would climb up onto the roof of our house with my trumpet, and I would just play that thing so loud. And I remember one time Bill came out of the dairy barn and he just yelled, "Hey Andy, get a job."
I think he wanted you to work for him.
Well, I think he was basically, in a way, making a funny joke that I sucked at the trumpet. And he didn't want to hear it while he was working. I called it freestyle jazz or something, I made some strange noises with my trumpet. I would play it like a didgeridoo and circle breathe and see how long I could hold a note, sometimes for 15 minutes. I had to finish this story. I yelled back to Bill. I said, "Hey, Bill, take a vacation."
Because he was on that farm every day.
He never stopped. But he yelled back to me, "I am."
I think I love those cows.
Yeah.
That was like his whole life.
And just like those moments, it was inspiring to me, doesn't matter how much money you're getting paid, doesn't matter how much work you're putting into something. It might appear to somebody else is that you're working really hard, but if you have passion for what you're doing and you love what you're doing, you're on vacation every day. Wake the farm up.
That's what it's all about. He was always smiling, Bill. I mean, I think he had a permanent smile. It was kind of strange. Even when he was unhappy, he was smiling. It was pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
Like, just to live that kind of life where you're just permanently smiling. It's plastered to your face.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of animal it is. I guess if you're hanging out by teats all the time, like, there's something that's quite comforting and cozy there.
Yeah, 250 of them. Bill was a strange guy, right? He would start talking like the cows, and he'd be like, hip, 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 hip. He would make these noises. He would make these noises to move them
And they'd
in the
be
line.
Like, "Hey, Bill. Hey, Bill."
He started learning their language. It was pretty fucking bizarre, but I loved it. The guy he was good heart.
It was crazy. Our roommate Dietzel would set up he was way ahead of his time. This kind of brings up this whole pre-internet kind of kid concept. We were definitely pre-internet kids, but our roommate Dietzel, he started trading guitars back then on the internet. We were still trying to figure out how to spell the word internet or something. I don't know. And he's selling and trading guitars on there, horse trading them. And I actually have spoken to him more recently. He's still doing that.
Yeah.
But he would set up these real intricate frisbee golf courses on the property there, and people would show up from all over the country to our house to go and play frisbee golf.
Yeah, he still does that. He was a pro frisbee golf player, but that was such a cool piece of land to set up those disc golf holes. All he would do is get a metal basket and put it somewhere, and then you'd have to throw it, and it was all these big rolling hills, if you could picture it, and then we'd sit at the top of the hill and throw it, and it would feel like a mile.
As the crow flies.
and that was when disc golf was really in its infancy, and he was one of the first people that I knew that was so serious into it. But
So
it was a
serious.
beautiful course, and I remember one time we were playing, and I threw it, and I saw this fox den,
Oh yeah.
and we had a bunch of fox that lived on our land, and we didn't know it until we were playing the disc golf course.
Foxy.
So that was really cool. We had a lot of wildlife out in that on that farm. It was beautiful. You know, I had a moment on that at that house on the porch. Now, if the audience could understand, we were on top of the cow farm on the top hill, and we had a sight. We could see all the way to the Ohio River, right? It's 6 or 7 miles away. And one time, I think I saw UFO, and I know I did
this.
actually.
I remember
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
We were
Take me to your leader.
it was in the middle of the summer, and we were just hanging out on the porch, and there may have been some types of illicit substances involved, but at the same time, like we were just hanging there because we had all sorts of experiments going on. It was kind of like a big chemistry lab over there, and I was on the porch, and me and my friend Tony, we were just kind of hanging, looking out onto the cow farm, talking and chatting it up. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of our eye, we see this big flash of light. Now, this is the kind of flash that comes zooming in off the horizon, and then it zips away just as fast as it came to us. And it was a bright light, like a spotlight. It was behind the trees, over the tree line. It couldn't have been more than a couple miles away at the most, probably closer. And then all of a sudden it zips and does a zag, and then it's gone. And I looked at Tony and I said, "Did you see that?" He said, "Yeah, I saw that." I'm like, "Whoa, this is not normal. A plane or helicopter can't fly in that pattern."
Right.
And he goes, "Yeah, I don't know what that was." And I said, "Yeah, I don't think we're gonna be able to explain that one away." And so we we sat there for the next 2 hours talking about how we just saw a UFO, and there's no way we'd be able to ever explain what that light was, that movement was. So that was the first time that ever happened to me, and my mind was blown, and I kind of I wasn't scared, but I
Well-
certainly was just shocked.
I remember that story, and I do remember during that time period as well, having mostly with Colin, our friend Colin, at that time, I would often see strange UFO lightings with that guy. And I do remember even conversations with you at the time, of us contemplating drones and what is very commonly known as drones now. They're very common. We see them in all different forms.
Yeah.
But that was what, like 1998 or something like
99
that?
or 2000,
99.
yeah. It was about 22 years ago.
Yeah, so that, it wasn't like a common thing to just be like, yeah, there's a drone flying in my backyard.
No, they weren't those kind of drones yet. We really didn't have the smaller drones, and there's no way this movement could have been a drone. So it just moves so fast and it's so close, and I don't know where the hell it came from or where it went to. Really kind of mind-boggling, but those kind of moments make you think, wow, we're just a small little piece. We're like a grain of sand on the beach of life. It's so far. It goes so far.
Just a needle in the haystack.
Gary Larson, The Far Side.
Yeah.
He had a lot of them with cows and aliens. I just feel like I remember a lot of cow and alien ones, and like maybe he saw one near a place like that as well, and that's something that aliens are into.
What if I have a cat, right? And you have a dog, and you have some animals, but I have a cat. Cats are weird. And I know you used to have a cat when we lived together. And I was starting to think, man, maybe cats are from
Willie.
another planet. Maybe, yeah, Willie, exactly. Maybe cats are from another planet. They're like another species that came over that the Egyptians brought from another star system.
Yeah.
And now they're just, they have different consciousness than us. They communicate differently. They have like a different radar and communication skills, and because they're really instinctual and they're super fast. Like you can't catch a cat if it doesn't want you to catch it.
The one thing I remember hearing about cats, like that was written somewhere, I can't quote where, but that cats are one of the only domesticated animals that domesticated themselves.
Ooh. See, that's bizarre to me and makes you wonder. Perhaps there's some species of cat that wants to be with humans. So who knows? We don't know where these animals came from. We just know that the Creator created them.
Right, and somehow they get 9 lives too, and there's all these mysteries around them. Like if they're a black cat and they cross your path, that means something. And you have to go and do some special ritual to cancel that out. But yeah,
I love rituals.
Speaking of interesting rituals, I remember at that time, like, this is, again, way before its commonality. Like, we had all kinds of house plants, and you were studying some interesting ethnobotany at OU at the time, and you were studying mycology. I remember doing spore prints with you.
Yes.
Can you tell us about any of that? Can you tell us about like the ayahuasca vine that we were growing?
I don't know. in our Sicilian community, I might have to. If I told you, I might have to kill you.
What?
No.
What the actual
He's milking
farm?
those things every day. He might really. No, it's yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about it, of course.
Dude, you've
all
killed
sorts.
me so many times. I've died laughing with you, man.
The best way to die. I was really into the connection between plants and people back when I was in college, and I was studying them really well. So I would spend all day checking out plants and learning about them. So I started reading about ayahuasca and what it was, and it's this brew that they use as a spiritual practice, and it's kind of like the shamans use it in the rainforest. And what it does is you drink it with the shaman, and you go into a ceremony, and there's all these different rituals involved in the ceremony, but it takes you to the spirit world, and then you kind of work through your problems with the shaman. So you go to him with some kind of ailment, and you drink the ayahuasca, and it's supposed to help you work through your problems, because at the source of these problems supposedly is energy and some kind of spirits, and so the ayahuasca shaman helps you to work through that. So at the time I was studying these plants, and I really wanted to get into it, and so I started studying all these different plants that have properties and chemicals that go into the ayahuasca brew, because the brew is a bunch of different plants.
Right. Some are like catalysts that help your body absorb the actual substances that stimulate the journey, and right.
And at the core is, yeah, exactly. And at the core is the dimethyltryptamine, the DMT molecule. So what I would do is I would find the plants that had the DMT molecule. Now, granted, this is very diluted inside of a plant. You'd have to have tons of this plant to use for the ayahuasca brew. But we used to brew we used to grow up a bunch of plants in hopes that we would do a brew one day. Now, I don't think we actually did the brew, but I studied all sorts of cool plants, and they kind of led me on all these different journeys, right? I mean, I wanted to experience these different realms, and I had this really crazy teacher, and he was an amazing guy. His name's Dr. Cavender. He was an expert mycologist. He taught us in the botany labs, and I went on a trip with him to to Belize and Guatemala, and we studied plants and ethnobotany. So I had some really crazy experiences with this guy. He was way out there, and all the different teachers, they didn't like him because he was kind of a cosmonaut. Super genius, but when you're a genius, you know what happens. People just look at you strange. So we had some really cool times together, and I think part of that.
Is that when you visited temples and whatnot?
Yeah,
some
exactly.
Of the ancient temples down there, and
yeah, I had some incredible times. There was a few moments where you can't explain these things away. Like, there's synchronicities. We were traveling into Guatemala, and we visited this Mayan temple. It was called Tikal. It was old Mayan ruins, and had this beautiful courtyard and these two huge temples that were about 150 feet tall or taller, and it overlooked the rainforest. And we climbed one of these temples at sunset, and we were just hanging out with the class, and we were taking notes, enjoying the sunset. And all of a sudden I had this incredible vision, and my classmates were nearby, Dr. Cavender was nearby, but I had this incredible vision as I'm looking out over the sunset in the rainforest, and as the sun It's beautiful colors dropping down to the top of the tree line, and it's making everything really colorful. And I'm on this ancient temple where people probably have been buried and heads dropped down the stairs, and who knows what they did, kind of sacrifices and rituals they did in this temple.
Hearts ripped out.
Yeah. Like Indiana Jones, the Temple of Doom. So I'm overlooking
I know I've had my heart ripped out a few times, but
not in this temple. Thank God. Otherwise, we might not be talking right now.
yeah.
But who knows? Maybe in another lifetime, right? But I have this incredible vision where this bird, this beautiful, bright, rainbow-colored bird, is swooping down at me over the temple, and it's coming right down into its beak is peeked out right into my face, and then I snapped out of it, and I said, wow, that was crazy. I had this hallucination, this spirit vision. So I took a moment, and I'm like, I'm gonna draw that into my notebook. Maybe one day, if I ever get tattoos, maybe I'll get a tattoo of this, but probably not. I'll just draw it out in my notebook, and then I took a little drawing, and I showed my teacher, my professor, Dr. Cavender. He said, "Oh, that's cool." He had this weird way of talking. He was far out. The guy, yeah, he was a mycologist in the '60s, so you can imagine. Great guy. So I had this incredible vision, and then we went about our day. We went to some other temples, and then we studied there for about a week and a half. Then a couple days later, we went to Antigua, which is another town in Guatemala near a volcano. And we were in this little market, and I'm walking around the market, and people are trying to sell me all their goods. They're trying to sell me colorful blankets and towels and hoodies and all these different, Mayan, I guess you would say memorabilia. And we're like, no, I'm not buying that stuff. I'm studying plants. I got my notebook in my hand. I'm looking around, I'm looking for plants that I know and making sketches. And this one guy comes up to me out of the shadows in the back in the corner. About the 100th guy that approaches me. He says, "Hey, you want this?" I said, "No, buddy. Thank you. No, thank you. No, gracias. I'm good." He said, No. Look. And so he pulls out this piece of wood. It's a carved piece of wood. It's a hardwood. And it's got this incredible temple on it with the same bird over the temple that I drew.
Whoa.
So I pulled out my notebook. I'm like, holy shit, that's the bird. Look at the bird and the temple. Oh my God, that's incredible. And I was like, yeah, I want that. You're right. So I paid like $3 or $4 US for it. And this guy had a look in his eye, like a little flash. He had like this. He had, yeah, it was something that couldn't explain away. So I bought this. It blew my mind. I was like, oh my gosh, that's synchronicity in this universe. I don't know how that happened, where this guy knew I wanted this little carved out piece of wood that I had the vision on the temple, but he just knew, and I bought it. And a few years later, I did get that as my first tattoo on my back.
Wow.
Because of that.
Maybe he was the alien that was flying past our place on Rainbow Lake.
See, now we're talking. That's a possibility. I mean, you just never know. The beautiful thing about life is the mystery, right? And that was the mystery. Why did that happen?
And now he's your cat.
We need to make a name up for the cat now.
Wow. That's a fascinating story, though. I love that.
It was wild. So, I really couldn't. There's this little magical moments that you remember, and you can envision them a little bit. But when you have those moments, those are the things that you try to hold on to, because you're just in bliss. You're happy. And I think that I'm really grateful for some of the experiences that I had there. Hey, that's
priceless, that experience of, I like to call it AR, actual reality.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it seems like, it's really about connections too, right? The people we meet along the way, the ones that kind of light us up and that we have fun times with, laugh with. And, the community of people that we have wherever we go, it matters. Those are the things that make it memorable. And I think you're kind of a master at that, Andy. I got to say, you're really good at connecting people and making them laugh and just being a child at heart. Yeah. Yeah, you got a great playful attitude. It's contagious.
Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. You got it.
I definitely feel like, sometimes I look back, I'm like, what was I doing going to all those fish shows? That's silly. But I also, like in my actual reality experience, I learned a lot about the world, just by all the different people that you would meet and experience at a fish show. There was all kinds of people
nostalgia.
Yeah.
And being before everybody had cell phones, back when at the end of a show everybody held up a lighter instead of a phone
Phone
thing.
For the encore, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, everybody was really present during those shows. Like, they knew there was tapers that were taping it, and we could listen to it later if we could get our hands on that tape. But everybody was just really present. There was just this incredible nowism happening. You could be walking from your area that you were hanging out at the show to the bathroom and back, and it might take you 45 minutes because you run into people you've never met before.
That's right.
Just even getting from your car to the show itself was an adventure.
It was all an adventure because we didn't have the phones to connect us like we used to, like we do now. So we didn't have those phones. I remember going to a show and we'd be in the parking lot getting ready to the show, and all of a sudden you run into someone you know really well, and it would just be like an old reunion. You'd hug them and you'd be like, "Hey, how you doing? It's so good to see you." And you'd take the time to catch up because you didn't know if you'd see that person again soon or ever again. And I think there's some of those folks maybe you never saw again.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
We weren't meeting people and then connecting with them on Facebook where we could store them until we wanted them later. It was like, we're here in this moment. I don't know who you are, and I won't, might not ever see you again, but maybe you see them 3 weeks later at a show, and you're like, cool, this is the person that gave me that fish sticker or whatever.
Yeah. In some ways, I feel bad for our kids. They can't experience that spontaneousness of life. It was a beautiful thing, and now it's so easy to connect with others. It's so much easier to message someone and say, "Hey, I'm going to be at this location. Come meet me."
Yeah.
It was random back then, and random meant spontaneous, and random meant adventure. And now it's almost like they don't have that same experience of not knowing. And that not knowing was the mystery. I mean, I think there's still some mystery involved. There always will be. But that was kind of more of a wild feeling, wild experience. And I think it makes you live when you don't have to plan everything out like that. You can just kind of be in the moment, right? Being in the moment is really a magical experience in itself.
Yeah.
And we make our own meaning of it, right? Who knows why we ran into certain people at certain times, but obviously there's something deeper there. We're all connected. And I think that's the biggest piece of what most people don't recognize anymore is we're all connected somehow. And so part of that is just kind of figuring out those connections and creating beautiful meaning out of it. And I don't know if our kids will ever have that, but I know that when we had it, it was a different time, and it was really, really spontaneous and beautiful.
Yeah, and I know we were experiencing a different time than our parents, and on
For
it
sure.
goes.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? Maybe the technology helps them in some ways, and that's wonderful. But I think,
Well, it's like anything. Some will adapt, and it'll be great for them, and some won't adapt, and it won't be great for them. Some of them will be able to escape it and experience a rich feeling of nowism. Some of them will, I don't know, all kinds of things. I mean,
it's Darwinism at its finest.
I even wonder what my life would have been like if in high school I would have been able to connect with like-minded people all over the world. Because I wasn't able to. I'm fairly unique person.
Wait, you're underplaying that a little bit.
But, but yeah, speaking of finding people too, I don't know if you're okay with talking a little bit about more contemporary things. I find it fascinating, like that you have been working as a CEO headhunter. Is that an appropriate title? How would you title that?
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
I'm the
that
vice
sounds
president
like
of our company, but
that
it's a
sounds
small
like an
company.
assassin or something.
You're using a lot of big words to describe me. It's scaring me here. I need a safe word, Andy. Can we get a safe word here?
You help people find very important jobs.
We didn't agree on this beforehand. We need a safe word. You're right, I do. I'm really grateful for that. I think I have a small company, but I've been doing this 20 years where I help people find jobs. And, I used to be really in the weeds with it in my mind. I'd be like, oh, I really need to help this person or this company. And now I think what's really helped me is to know and go back to that feeling I had before cell phones and stuff is, whatever is meant to be will be. I'm going to do my best to help these people. But my purpose is really, and I say it, I have a mission statement I say every morning. My purpose is to help people in their lives and careers and to do the very best that I can for myself and for others. And if you keep it that simple, when I keep it that simple, the right people come into my life that I can help them with the jobs, the right companies come to me, and they say I need to hire someone, and I find them the right connection. So I'm really a matchmaker.
Matchmaker, make me a match.
And I mean, I'm not really big on titles. We have a tiny little company, but I'm really grateful that I can help people because this goes to the core of what they do every day. And I match them up with other people and other companies, and then all of a sudden, that's their life, And then I step away, and that's what they do for the many years, sometimes, maybe the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool,
That's amazing.
I'm grateful for that. It gave me a purpose, and also, I think the big thing is I get to help people, which, no matter how you do it in life, if you're helping others, then you're feeling good about yourself. I think this is something that's lost too. When you help people, it helps you.
Well, I'll give you some feedback. I know we've been able to maintain our friendship and keep up with each other, even though we might not have seen each other in actual reality in a long time.
Yeah.
That's, again, I'm grateful for that modern technology.
Yeah.
But we have great phone call conversations here and there, and I know there's been times where I've been trying to figure out my life journey, and after a conversation with you, I feel encouraged and, filling my purpose and moving towards my mission in life. And it's been, it's great to have good friends that are encouraging and motivating in this world and doing good things.
For sure. We all need each other, man. I think, and you provide something different for me, which is, that lighthearted approach that I can talk to someone and laugh about just about anything.
Yeah.
So that makes a big difference. We're all helping each other in our own unique ways, and we all bring a different skill set to that and experiences to that.
So another inspiring thing about you've written a book in the past, and you're currently working on one as well.
Yep. So the book I
share
wrote in the
anything
past
about
is called, yeah, for sure. It was really to help people. Again, it's called You Got the Job, Turn Your Career Dreams into Reality. So this book is for people that, were looking for a job. Could be a college student just getting out of college and going to his first work opportunity, or it could be someone that's a career professional and is looking for a new job. And so I wrote that like 2018 and put a lot of time and energy into it. Did really well. I went number one in about 12 different business categories. So that was great. Good feeling.
Awesome.
But more importantly, I had people call me later that said it helped them, which that meant a lot to me. So I think it's a good feeling we could help others. And I wrote a new one recently. It's going to be published in late April. It's called Talent Doesn't Grow on Trees, How to Hire Your Next Superstar. So this one's probably more for companies and managers that are hiring people.
So,
but I mean, it's still
that's
good
great.
stuff.
Like one person gets the book, You Got the Job, and then the person hiring them will get the book, Talent Doesn't Grow on Trees.
Yep.
And you're helping that whole thing, getting people lined up with the job that they'll actually like, and people that are hiring with employees they actually like.
Yeah.
It'll
That's the goal.
Help that, help the world in a lot of ways. There's a lot of stress, people being unhappy with their jobs or their life situation.
I hear it every day.
Statistically, more stress in the world than ever before. So you putting these things out there for the world, that's an incredible way of
Thanks, man.
assisting. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm grateful. I mean, I'm thankful that I'm in the position to do that. Hey, listen, I'm not the best writer in the world. And you know what? This second book's a little more basic. It's shorter. Maybe it's only 70 pages.
Okay.
But who cares? Who wants to read a novel of 500 pages about how to hire somebody? You just want to get to the point, and hopefully it helps them. The ideas. It's the ideas that matter, not the writing. So, yeah, the goal is to help people, right? I mean, doesn't matter how I do it. And by the way, guys, this book isn't making me rich. I'm not sailing off into the sunset with these books, okay? Like, I'm not buying my own private island because I wrote a book.
And again, that's not why you're writing it, you know.
Right.
I think, like, you know, a few examples. There's an author I really like since I was probably like 12, a guy named Piers Anthony, and he wrote a series of books called the Xanth novels, and it's a fantasy book and or a fantasy series. I used to read them when I was in grade school. I recently looked it up. I think I read probably like 16 books in the series.
Wow.
After I quit reading these books, he kept writing them. And I looked it up recently, and there's over 40 books in this series.
You got some catching up to do.
I do. I need to, like, find that time. But, like, the book I read of his recently was really fascinating. You might enjoy it, people. It's called Tatham Mound. And what he did with the money he was making from all these other books, I mean, when you produce that many books, you're not making that much money per book, but you're making an accumulation through all that.
Of course.
And he's been successful at getting out there into the world, too. But with this Tatham Mound book, it's very different than all his other fantasy books. He used his money to fund a archaeological excavation of a mound in Florida. And from the remnants of what he found in the mound, from the bodies, the artifacts found with the bodies, he created this whole fantasy world of this pre-Columbian North American existence that's just absolutely fascinating, and it brings life to it. I definitely recommend experiencing that book. It's like, you could call it prehistoric fiction.
That's incredible. You know what? That's creativity and imagination. And think about this. His imagination and creativity touches so many people's lives, and then it opens up their creativity. You know, that's actually genius. And he's passing along that genius. That's a lost art form that, you know, writing and kind of diving into books. I hope kids are really learning how to read, because it's a different world out there. It's like a different universe in a book, and you can get lost. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, there's moments where you have time to sit and read a book. Your little device might go ding, and then you go and look at it, and it's a message from somebody saying something about how they got some new socks and a picture of it. And then next thing you know, you're sending somebody else a picture of your coffee. You know, so it could be distracting out there to, like, really focus on just reading a book, reading words.
Well, isn't it crazy how electronics and all these technology is distracting if you don't really take the time to kind of get into yourself and get some peace of mind? It can really take you and pull you off track. And, you know, focus is something that I hope our kids don't struggle with. But, man, there's a lot of distractions to knock them off their focus now.
Right. I hope I can help out in that realm in the world, because I was diagnosed with ADHD and, you know, a good long time ago, and have learned how to live with that and turn it into a superpower.
That's right. It is a superpower.
Right? It's like, I remember,
Super Andy.
I mean, it's a very classic story I tell of where I had ADD, and I was able to be in the classroom paying attention to the teacher, what they were writing on the chalkboard. Yeah, we had chalkboards. And I was paying attention to what was on my desk, you know, the textbook on my desk. I was paying attention to what the other students were doing, like passing notes to each other, or like flicking spitballs at each other. I was able to see the bird outside the window and, like, notice how it was, like, fluffing its feathers and looking around. I was able to notice the guy on the lawnmower. All of it, all at the same time. Then they gave me medication. They gave me a Ritalin.
Yeah.
And you know what happened?
Slowed you down.
It was
It
just
slowed
me.
you down, didn't
It
it?
was just me and the bird in the window. Everything else was gone.
Yeah, because you're focused.
I was focused on what I wanted to focus on. You know, it was like that bird was the most fascinating of all those things to me.
You know what's crazy now is they have, and that it is a superpower that you had. It's just unfortunately people called it something different.
Right.
Now they have these medicines and they're called smart drugs, and they have these medicines kind of like Ritalin, but other ones that you can take, and it helps you to focus and kind of it's for studying and it's for keeping focus on a project, but it also keeps you up longer, and it's not some kind of amphetamine or anything like that. It's literally a drug that makes you focus. It rewires your brain because these brains are just big computers with a bunch of wires in it. And you could change the wires around, so it's weird. But with science comes both advancement and the changing of technology. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, right?
Right.
Man, but those days were simpler times when you're younger, and you could just look out the window and you focus on the bird, but also everything that's going on in class all at once, which is there's 10 million things going on at once, and it's kind of cool that you had that superpower.
I think one of the things that happens now is if you see a bird outside the window and it's interesting to you, you're trying to figure out how you can take a picture of it so you can show everybody, so you can get little thumbs up pictures with you.
But it never translates right.
No,
you never get the beautiful view he had from your eyeballs. It just never works.
Yeah, and sometimes it's no.
You never get the beautiful view he had from your eyeballs. It just never works.
Yeah, and sometimes it's. I think that you need to develop that in yourself to just appreciate the bird outside the window. In that moment, it's just a relationship between you and the bird.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else needs to be involved. Sure, later if you want to write a poem about it,
yeah,
you can share that. But that poem might be able to show the bird outside the window and how you experienced it a lot better.
Yeah, and it's about connecting, right? Connecting the dots. I've had a few incredible synchronicity moments again recently, and if we're talking about birds, then the last year I've had some really wild moments, and with birds. And about 2 weeks ago, I was driving down the road after lunch, going back to work, and all of a sudden this huge bald eagle flew right above my car. And of course I slowed down. No one else is around me. I slowed down, and all of a sudden it starts flying in parallel with the road right above me, about 100 feet above me. Now I could see its white tail and its sharp orange beak, and the wingspan was 10 feet. And it's flying slowly above my car, and I'm rolling now 10-15 miles an hour just so I could stare at this bird. It was so beautiful, and it flew about a quarter mile with me down the road, and then it flew off into the woods over to the airport where I work. And I looked. I've been seeing bald eagles lately, and I had not seen them over here. I live near Lake Erie. I had not seen them for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. But all of a sudden, the last month or two, I've been seeing more bald eagles, and I've been looking it up, and I think bald eagles are a really good omen. So sometimes you have to kind of figure out why you're going through and seeing certain things and what that means to you. So I think it's a beautiful omen. I mean, bald eagles are a show of strength, and I think I'm going through some positive changes, but the cool thing is
that's cool you mentioned that omen, that totem kind of side of it. I know I've been experiencing, there's a large state park near where I live, and the eagles have been nesting in the park for the last 20 years.
What kind of eagles?
Bald eagles.
Awesome. They're a beautiful bird.
And recently I've been seeing 2 juvenile bald eagles hovering in the trees around right next to my house. So they're playing in the fields near me. They're checking out my chickens. They have no easy way to fly down and grab one. So I'm not too worried about it. And if they do, that's okay. They're allowed to have one or two.
They're hungry. They're really hungry. They want some chicken for dinner.
That actually reminds me, there is a chicken farm, an organic chicken farm I read about down south somewhere that were having problems with eagles coming and taking their chickens. But then the local area started hearing about the eagles there, so people started coming to watch the eagles.
Wow.
Years later, now that farm makes more income from tourism coming to watch the eagles look at the chickens. That they're not even worried about the chicken farm anymore. They're just like selling postcards of eagles and they have the little quarter machines where you can put binoculars and look through it or something. And they've been establishing more nesting areas, and it's interesting how people can adapt to these different problems they have. Turn
Absolutely.
their problems into solutions.
Well, I think that's incredible you just said that, because aren't all of our problems actually a blessing if you look at it that way? Somehow it's a blessing. I mean, it really can be. It just takes a little perspective.
Yeah.
It takes a little perspective. You have to get away from the problem to see it as a blessing. You have to kind of get a 10,000-foot view like the eagles do. And once you do, right, maybe that's the totem, the connection. Maybe the eagles are seeing things from a different perspective, and they're guiding us along the way. Who knows? The problem doesn't have to be a problem. It could be something that actually makes your life better. But you do have to kind of get to that place to see it like that.
Wake the farm up. I know in the schooling I've done through the idea of permaculture, it's always been one of my favorite quotes from the founder, Bill Mollison. He says that though the problems of the world grow ever complex, the solutions remain embarrassingly simple.
It's true. Simplicity. I mean, there's almost nothing better. Nature has a very simple way of organizing things, and if we follow nature's path, I mean, that really could lead us to a more simple life.
Very simple, yet absolutely more complex than we can ever fathom.
Well, everything's more complex, but we have to find the simplicity in it.
Yeah, it's more complex than we need to fathom, perhaps, to live. Yeah. I mean, there's mushroom spores in our houses that have never been identified what species they are.
Billions of them, trillions of them everywhere.
Every day they could go and discover new species of something, and it's very true that most of those we don't research them until we need to. Like, we would have never known what the malaria bacterias were if they didn't make us sick.
Yeah, exactly.
They made us sick, so we had to go and learn about that.
Yeah, because we wanted to make sure that we didn't die from them. But a lot of people died of malaria, actually.
A lot of people still do, or lose their vision, or have some other major health trauma from it.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy too. I mean, all these advancements, they do help us with health, but our ancestors didn't have this. Like, I know my family's from Sicily, and I read about there's being really big malaria problem in Sicily, and people were dying in the 1800s and before that from malaria because they'd get these infestations of mosquitoes, and then they'd get bit, and they didn't know what was wrong with them. They didn't know how to cure themselves. I mean, so it was kind of bizarre, and that was the luck of the draw. Nature has its own way of selecting in and out. Some of us leave because nature, it says it's time. But how's the permaculture thing going, Andy? You're still teaching permaculture?
Yeah, I am teaching many aspects of it. I would say I don't carry the title of permaculture 100% anymore. I feel like I've tried to get outside of any kind of box like that.
Yeah, but you're still certified, right?
Yeah, I'm certified
Cool.
for 21 years, and it's pretty wild. I've been teaching that for that long, and sharing and experimenting and adapting and watching the community of permaculture change. I think the internet changed the community of permaculture quite a lot.
I'm sure.
So
yeah, I'm sure.
It's an experience.
It's awesome. Well, it's a connection to nature. It's a real strong connection to nature and the simplicity of nature too, right?
Yeah, it's the bringing ourselves into the ecosystem as opposed to studying it through a terrarium window or in a petri dish,
Right. It's more real.
The experiment of putting myself into it, and like, how can I eat? How can I interact with this in a way that perpetuates itself in a continuous way, in a healthy way? So like, I have orchards of trees on my homestead that are the kind of trees that when their seeds fall on the ground, could generate new trees, as opposed to an orchard that's all grafted trees where 50 years from now it could just turn back into a wild forest. Like, it'll turn into a wild forest on its own now, but it'll be a wild forest full of pawpaw trees. And I have peach trees that drop seeds that grow into peaches very similar to the parent tree.
Whoa.
As opposed to
That's cool.
Yeah, opposed to varieties that, will drop seeds and then grow some unknown weird thing. So yeah, I like to cultivate into the ecosystem as one of the other animals.
You are an animal.
So, every other animal is gardening. Like, birds are planting things on the fence lines all across the country. They're the ones planting all these things that people are calling invasive.
Yeah, the abundance is endless. It's wild that nature gives us all this abundance, and we're just observing it, really. And we're also, being a permaculturalist, you're into it. You understand what's going on and why. And I think that's awesome, man.
Constantly observing and seeing new perspectives and gaining wisdom from things like the eagles and the perspectives they have to share with us, right?
It's cool. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's all about kind of seeing things from other perspectives. Imagine how many people you've helped with your permaculture skills. I mean, that's amazing, and that's something that you have to kind of appreciate. Whatever you learned, you helped thousands and thousands of people with your permaculture.
Actually, I remember living at the house with you at Rainbow Lake, pretty much headed out onto my permaculture journey right from there.
Yeah, I know, and it's amazing.
Hanging out with Molly in Australia.
Oh my God, I want to hear about that. The Aborigines. Did you meet any Aborigines when you were there?
I did. I remember a couple of them found out I was from America, and they were trying to get me to send guns to Australia because they're not allowed to have them there. I'm just like, I can't do. I don't know how to just mail you guns. That's crazy.
They wanted you to smuggle guns. Those dudes are gangsters.
I don't know if there's going to be much at all in this that I'm going to be cutting out. This has been a great conversation with you. You've had so much to share. Our nostalgic reminiscings were incredible. I think that I'll enjoy listening to them over and over. Hopefully the listeners here will enjoy our stories and get some laughter out of it and some inspiration and help them out with their life journey. As both of you and I are finding that as a commonality in our mission and purpose.
Yeah, I had fun hanging out with you, man. Thanks for inviting me. I'll be happy to do it again in the future when I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, we'll keep up and we'll keep maintaining ground with each other, and look forward to seeing you in real life here sometime and getting to see your face while we're laughing.
Same here, man. Yeah. Much love, Andy. Thanks so much for inviting me.
All right, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Much love to you, bro. We'll see you soon.
With the form up. And that wraps up episode 3 with Angelo Giallombardo. What an awesome storyteller he is. So, keep it up. We'll be making more episodes here as we have more great conversations with the incredible, inspiring, and hilariously awesome and serious, great people that we know who are waking the farm up in this world. Thanks, and that's all from your host, Andy, the mother farming elf.
Wake the farm up.